Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to a regular scheduled meeting of the Montclair Historic Preservation Commission. It is February 22nd, 2024. We're a nice, intimate group tonight, but we are a quorum, so this is a regular meeting of the Montclair Historic Preservation Commission. Notice has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting a copy of the notice on the first floor of the municipal building and by sending a copy to the Montclair Times, the Star Ledger, and the Herald News. We are being broadcast live on Channel 34, Montclair TV, and we are being remotely streamed on the YouTube channel. Safawa, would you please call the roll?
Kathleen Bennett.
Present.
Michael Graham.
Here.
Gerald Sweeney.
Here.
Nicholas Giuliano.
Here.
Janine Bauer.
Here. Here. Oh, you have to say who's not here.
Sorry. John Remnitz.
Been excused.
He's been excused. Stephen Rooney. He's been excused. And Janice Talley, also excused.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The next is approval of the minutes from January 18th, 2024.
Chair, I noticed in the minutes that you had recused yourself for the portion of the meeting that you had missed. Should I do the same for the approval of these minutes?
Did you?
I came in during one of the applications.
Well, that means we don't have a quorum then to approve them, correct? But I was going to ask anyway that we put off the minutes to approving till next meeting because I have a number of changes to them, okay. and I didn't get a chance to send them to Fawa, and I will do that, and I'll send a copy to everybody here.
I have changes too. Yeah.
Okay, so could you send the changes then?
Sure.
All right, and then we'll send them all to. If you copy us on the changes,
Absolutely.
and then we'll send them all to Fawa. So I would suggest that we wait until our meeting in March to approve the minutes.
If I have non-substantive changes to the portion I was not a part of, am I allowed to send those, or should I just focus on the portion of the meeting that I attended? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate the clarity.
And do you have any changes, Nick?
No.
Okay, great. So we have 3 here that we'll be sending to you. Okay, great. Moving forward, we have resolutions. The first resolution is to hire Architectural Heritage Consultants as our Historic Preservation Commission architect. Everyone's received a copy of that resolution dated February 22nd, 2024. I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that resolution's been moved. The second one is a resolution to hire Strans Engineering as Historic Preservation Commission engineer. That was also written on February 22nd, 2024. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the third is a resolution to retain Szaferman, Lakind, Blumstein, and Blatter at PC as Historic Preservation Commission attorney, with Janine Bauer being present and attending our meetings. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All in favor? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So Janine, we'll be seeing you next year as well.
Very efficient.
And then we have, resolution and certificate of appropriateness for HPC 2023-43, our last application of the year, actually, of 2023. And this is the applicant Jackson Bangs. Our property address is 330, 336 Bloomfield Avenue. Everyone's had an opportunity to read this.
Mm-hmm.
May I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
And second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we are going on to committee reports. We have a number of committee reports. Minor applications, we met on 131, application 2023-43, 330 to 334 Bloomfield Avenue, which we just approved, and the resolution was approved with conditions. Application 2024-02, 42 South Park Street, was just approved today, right? That was finalized today, correct? Approved with conditions. And 2024-03, 237 Lorraine Avenue was approved with conditions. The advisory committee met on January 24th. We met with the new owner of the Mills Building to review the exterior of the Mills Building. It was John Remnitz and myself, and we walked around the exterior of the building and the gardens to really have a look-see as to what condition the building was in now. We were looking at the plans that Paul Cyanis had provided, I think it was 3 years ago. So nothing really has happened since then. And the owner was interested to know when he considers to put together his application, what the HPC would advise as to what he would be able to do with the exterior of the building. So I think that was a very positive meeting. On February 1st, there was a meeting at the Bond House in Upper Montclair with myself, a member of the Montclair History Center, and there were 5 members of a team of Montclair University. And the Bond House is a local landmark, and it's really fallen into disrepair since they were able to do a lot of work on it in around 2018, I guess. But the good news is that they do have an architect that has been hired to do a conditions report, and I put together a memorandum for the commission. So at the end, that the HPC and the Montclair History Center acknowledge that Montclair University knows and understands the historic nature of the house and property and its significance to the residents of Montclair. We hope that the university continues to reach out to both entities as this project takes shape and draws upon our reserves in an advisory capacity. So they're looking not only to improve to renovate and restore the exterior, but also they wanted some ideas for possible venues for the house, because now it's empty and it's just as they've been using it for storage for the theater. But there's a parking lot, unfortunately, but at least there's people around. So everybody knows it's in a prime location. So whatever they decide to do, some of the suggestions seemed as though it would be very positive. So that was also a positive meeting. Continuing with outreach, I had to go to Mount Hebron School to photograph the doors of that lead into the auditorium, which are by Francis Nelson. And while speaking to the principal there, he told me that they have an architecture club. So I'm in communication with the teacher that's in charge of that, hoping that we could have some kind of something to go on with the children at the middle school, and also a possible collaboration with the architecture class or club at the high school. I know a couple of people on the commission were participated in the webinar for the substitute materials that was presented by the National Park Service. So I think if anybody here if you could just tell FAWA, because that would go towards next year for our CLG grant on our education, okay? And I thought it was great. It was really interesting, yeah. And if they have a printout FAWA, and I was wondering if maybe we could get that on our website.
Okay.
All right? Because it might it might help people that are looking to do work on their buildings, and it might give them some ideas, some suggestions. So if, I think it's, what it was
The brief, right? Brief 16?
What's that?
The whole brief, right? Brief 16?
Yes, but it was
Yeah.
pictures. It was like a PowerPoint. So I
Yeah.
don't know if they have the capability to do that.
I
but-
saved it onto my computer, so if you need it, let me
Good.
know. I'll
There
email it
could
to
be
you.
a link. It could be linked.
Or you could
to-
link it. Yeah, that would be, I think it would be very beneficial.
Okay.
And it might help you out.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, just in the past, we've been informed of upcoming educational seminars. Just wanted to confirm that we would be receiving that information from the planning department. Laura? In the past, the board's been informed of, the commission's been informed when educational opportunities have come up, and I just wanted to confirm that the planning department would keep us informed if
course.
those educational opportunities
Of
do
course, of
arise over the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, no opportunity has arrived up till now, but if there is any, I will for sure update you guys.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay.
And the revisions committee met last week at 225 Lorraine Avenue to discuss the revisions to the original application, and that was also a very positive meeting, I think. Another Sionis application, but that was great. What I would like to do now is, we did discuss last month, the amendments for the demolition ordinance, and we had quite a lengthy discussion about that. We also discussed it with our attorney, so I would like to ask one of our members to move that information to move us forward.
Yeah, I would just like to say, I think it provides much-needed clarity in the demo ordinance with respect to partial demolition, and we've made sure that it is uniform with the total demolition ordinance. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment to the total demolition ordinance.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'd just like to thank both Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Graham for helping on that, because it was a lot of work, actually. And about 3 months' worth of work.
It's difficult to amend an ordinance.
Seemed
it
longer
was.
than that.
So we'll go forward then, Fawa. So with having said that, I would like to propose 2 new committees, one of which would be the C of A, which is really in tandem with what we did with the amendments, because we realized that the certificate of appropriateness was not in tandem with the amendments that we have recognized and are advising. We also need to add fees into certificate of appropriateness. So with that, I would like to propose a new committee, and I was going to ask Mike and Jerry and myself to be on that, because we had worked on this amending, and I think we have pretty firsthand knowledge about that. And we also had discussed the certificate of appropriateness, but, okay?
I would be happy
Yeah.
to help. yes.
Okay, so that's our new committee, is going to be the certificate of appropriateness application, and it will be Jerry, myself, and Mike. And then we also need another committee to examine the HP element of the master plan, which is coming up. And we really need to start on that like sooner rather than later. There had been talk that we were going to do this when Tommy was here, so that was probably, 6 months ago? And then the summer came and everything sort of changed up. So at the risk, we don't have 2 members here, but is there anyone here that would volunteer now to be on that committee as well?
Well, I think, Chair, given that I'm on the planning board and the liaison between
You're
the
a
boards,
must.
I think
You
I'm
have
happy to
you have
volunteer.
you have
I don't
no
have a choice. I'm
Okay.
happy to volunteer. Yeah.
Mike? And I'll be, yes.
Just to clarify, what's the role of the CFA
Planning, I'm not sure I'm gonna have time for that, so.
Okay. So we'll send out a message to Mr. Reinmanson and Mr. Rooney to see if they'll have time for that, okay? Because it would be nice to have at least 3 people on it.
Agreed.
Okay.
Well, in that case, I'll be on it. I will serve on it.
Oh, wonderful, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so we have 3. And we could do it virtually, like we did. I'll renew which will make it a little easier, okay? So, yes,
And the committees, the previous committees remain the same?
that was going to be my next point.
Well, did we decide, the master plan revision committee, was that us again as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay, just wanted to.
It's going to be
thank you.
Jerry, you and
Okay.
I. And then I asked Fawad to make a copy of the HPC committees from 2023, wondering if people would like to stay on the same committees or if they would like to change. And Nick, we have to get you on a committee.
Design review sounds good if we need an opening for it.
Okay,
If we need to
great.
fill an opening.
So we have John and Mike on that committee. It's a committee of, it can't be 4, it has to be 3. You're going to be very busy.
I was thinking that is the only substantive, like that one, the Education Outreach Committee has been somewhat dormant. So, I mean, I'm happy to adjust, because the C of A revision, the master plan revision, they're kind of ad hoc and won't be long-term committees. So I would like to remain on the design review committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, well, let's put Nick on the design review committee, and then I'll speak to Steve and John to see what their availability is. Because there cannot be 4 people on a committee, all right? Oh, excuse me. We're not in Italy.
I have the same one for my alarm clock in the morning. Makes me think I'm waking up somewhere else.
Okay, so Fawad, if you put together this committee list with 2024, I should ask, are everybody else comfortable with remaining on where they've landed? Okay.
One last question. So minor applications committee, how come it has 2 people? Since, like, if we need to have 3.
Because no one has volunteered for it.
Are you interested in those?
We
Mr.
do that,
Johanna?
we do that virtually.
Okay, sure.
All right, great, we have Nick on that. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Because that we actually look at applications and I think you would be good at that.
Okay,
All
sounds
right.
good.
All right, and then, so put Nick on minor applications, and we'll speak to Mr. Rooney, because he has also been he's on education and outreach. I thought he was on revisions. Anyway, we'll speak to him, okay? So I think that's all we have for committees. So moving forward, the next is public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the HPC on anything concerning preservation? No. Okay, with that, nobody's at the podium. I will close public comment. Old business, we do not have old business. New business is a referral from the Zoning Board of Adjustment, which is application 2870, 5 Wheeler Street LLC. It's a major subdivision approval to subdivide the subject property to create 2 lots. Okay, this subject property at 5 Wheeler Street, we are making recommendations to the zoning board for a major site plan approval and subdivision approval to subdivide the subject property to create 2 lots. The property is within the proposed historic district named Wheeler Street. It's listed as a contributing source, and it was included in the 2019 intensive level architectural survey. The house was built in 1923, and the property description from the report is attached. It's been referred to us for comment. The subject property is in the R2 family residential zone, which has a minimum lot width of requirement of 60 feet. There are a few variances are required. There's 11 variances required and 4 code waivers. What we are considering here at the HPC is how this fits in with the neighborhood. The Wheeler Street, I don't have the description here on me now, but it was a working class neighborhood that was developed late 19th century. Many of the houses are 1 to 2 family. There's a very close property line, and they sit very close to the street. I do have recommendations from the Board of Adjustment, and which I've asked FAWA to give to all of our commission members so that you may review it as we have comments, okay? So with that, Mr. Sionis and Ms.
John Basta. For the record, my name is Lisa John Basta. I'm with the law firm Keys, Indian and Jantomasi, on behalf of the applicant 5 Wheeler LLC. As was stated, this application is before the zoning board. It's for a minor subdivision approval.
Oh.
Just for clarification, to create 2 lots. 1 lot would retain the existing 2-family home, which is, I think, referred to in your historic element as a contributing building.
Oh, sorry about that. Do I need to start over, or we're good? Okay. Again, for the record, my name's Lisa John Basta with the law firm Keys, Shahinian and Jantomasi on behalf of the applicant 5 Wheeler LLC. As was stated by Madam Chair, this application is pending before the zoning board. The applicant is requesting a minor subdivision to create 2 lots. 1 lot would retain the existing 2-family home. The second lot is slated for development. The existing, and Paul will go into this in greater detail, the existing 3-car garage there and surface parking lot, the garage would be demolished, and the new 4-unit residential building is proposed facing Woodland Avenue. This is a corner lot. So it's on the corner of Wheeler and Woodland, but the new building would be facing and fronting on Woodland. There are a number of variances that are requested in connection with that application, including a use variance. We have 1 witness tonight to go through the presentation, which is Paul Sionis with Sionis Architecture.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Paul Sionis. I'm the principal architect of Sionis Architecture. I'm Paul Sionis, okay? I'm the principal architect of Sionis Architecture located at 8 Hillside Avenue in Montclair.
Mr. Sionis, I need to swear you.
Please.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide on the application tonight to the commission will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So I'd like to distribute copies of the PowerPoint first.
Great. And while you're distributing that, I just want to point out that on the memorandum from the planning department, it does state it's for a major site plan approval. So that's wrong. I just...
Well, okay, we'll clarify it with the planning
Sure.
department, but yeah. I'm also going to play Vanna White tonight too, so I'll be up here.
Great, thank you. So I have several slides that I'd like to go through. Starting with this first slide, which is a Google Earth satellite view of the subject property. So the property is currently labeled 5 Wheeler Street. It's outlined in orange on that slide. and it's located at the southeast corner of Wheeler Street and Woodland Avenue, and it's directly across the street from Glenfield Park, which is a county park. As Lisa mentioned, that an application has been filed to the zoning board for minor site plan approval to subdivide the property into 2 lots. As you can see, the property is L-shaped, and we could go to the next slide, please. So this slide is the Montclair zoning map, and as was stated, this is in the R2 two-family zone. Next slide, please. So this slide shows that the property is located within the Wheeler Street Potential Historic Resource. So the majority of the buildings in this area were constructed between 1910 and 1929. And as a matter of fact, my mother-in-law's family moved to Wheeler Street right before 1920 from Sicily and lived there until the early 1960s. So they lived around 30 Wheeler Street, or somewhere, one of those last few houses on Wheeler Street. So that was typical of this neighborhood. A lot of families came from Italy or Sicily, developed these houses. Some of them were very good masons, the people who lived there. I read through the Connolly and Hickey intensive level survey of this area that was prepared in 2019, and it described basically that there were 2 categories of architecture here. There were 2 to 4 family residences, in addition to low-rise walk-up apartment buildings. Next slide, please. So this slide, this is a view looking east at the subject property. You can see the paved parking area on the left. There's the 1-story masonry 3-car garage basically to the right of the center in this slide. And then there's 5 Wheeler Street, which is a 2-story, 2-family house. And according to the records, that was built in 1923. It has a brick exterior on the north facade. The front facade is currently stucco, but we found an older photograph that showed brick on that facade. And then the southerly facade, not shown in this photo, currently has vinyl siding on that facade. Next slide, please. This slide looks south along Wheeler Street, and you can see the subject property on the left-hand side. Directly to the left on Woodland Avenue is a building that's known as 27-29 Woodland Avenue. That building has 11 dwelling units. On the right side of this photo, the next corner, the westerly corner of Woodland and Wheeler is 15-17 Woodland. That was constructed in 1925. It's labeled as a key contributing building, and that one has 4 dwelling units. It has a masonry exterior. It's a pretty simple building form, and it has selective details applied to the bricks. So you'll see some stone inserts, you'll see some corbelling and some bands in that brickwork. Next slide, please. So this slide continues looking to the right, or to the south side of Woodland Avenue, just to the west of Wheeler Street. So 1517 Woodland, the 4 dwelling unit building, is on the corner. It's on the left side of this slide. That's the one that was built in 1925. And then everything to the right is 2.5 story buildings, mostly with probably original wood siding that's been covered with a different material over the last 40 years. Next slide, slide number 7. So slide number 7 is the south side of Woodland Avenue, but just to the east of Wheeler Street. So 2729 Woodland, that's the building it's a 3-story building. It has 11 dwelling units. According to the records, up until the 1950s, there was a pretty active grocery store on the first floor of that building. Now there's an apartment on that first floor. The ground floor on the west side is coated with stucco, but the brick exterior is pretty much intact on the rest of the building and all of the 3 sides of the building. Just that ground floor is Seems like the brick was covered with stucco at some times in the past. Next slide. So this is looking down Wheeler Street, down to the south of Wheeler Street, with the subject property, 5 Wheeler Street, on the left. On the right in this image, there's a fenced-in parking area that serves as parking for 1517 Woodland, which is the southwest corner of Woodland and Wheeler. Next slide. This is a 1934 Sanborn map, and the interesting thing from this Sanborn map is that you can see in 1934, most of these properties were already developed. The two-family house at 5 Wheeler, that's clearly shown, as is the existing one-story, 3-car garage that's currently surrounded by paving. And based on this Sanborn map, it could have been surrounded by paving or gravel back in 1934. But there was nothing on that except for parking. Next slide. This is the survey map of the property, and the proposal that's being made to the zoning board will be to subdivide this L-shaped lot, creating one new lot at the south or at the bottom, which will contain, I'm sorry. So the proposal is to subdivide this property and create one new lot. So there'll be a new lot directly to the south, which will contain the existing two-family house, which is 5 Wheeler Street. And then the other lot to be created will be the trapezoidal-shaped lot that's at the intersection of Wheeler Street and Woodland. Next slide, please. This is the site plan, and on the site plan, we're stating that the proposal will be to, in addition to subdivide the property and keeping that two-family house on the southerly lot, the existing one-story, 3-car garage is to be removed, as is all of that existing paved parking area at the northwest corner of Wheeler and Woodland. So the applicant's proposal is to construct a new 2.5-story, 4-family dwelling with a new 10-car parking lot. And as you can see by the area that's shaded darker gray, 1.5 stories of the new building will partially extend over that parking area. Next slide, please. So this is one of the 2 rendered views of the proposed building. This first one is looking southwest from Glenfield Park, and the architecture has been designed to complement the buildings directly to the east and to the west along Woodland Avenue, which include a simple 2-story building form in brick. We're also including brick detailing such as corbel and soldier banding, brick roll-lock and stretcher courses, in addition to cutouts in the façade and the parapet to provide views towards Glenfield Park from the terraces that will be within the building and on the roof of that second floor. So the applicant wants to take advantage of this location next to Glenfield Park and have the people who live here experience the view of Glenfield Park. Next slide. This is a rendered view looking northeast on Wheeler Street. So Glenfield Park is on the left side of this image, and the existing 5-wheeler is on the right side of this image. The 2-story portion, that brick portion of the new building, the purpose is to anchor that street corner, to sort of relate to those other 2 buildings, the one directly to the west and the one directly to the east. So we'd like to relate to those 2 buildings, which have a pretty strong frontage on Woodland Avenue. But the rear, or the southerly portion of this building, we're stepping it further away from Wheeler Street so it aligns with the setbacks along Wheeler Street. Next slide. Oh, nope, back, sorry, back, thanks. So the top half-story has a gable-shaped roof with rectangular dormers. The dormer shapes were selected to complement what we think is a slightly more contemporary design of this rear portion and the top half-story section of this building. The exterior of the gable roof portion of the building is shown here as a fibrous cement material. We studied the use of stucco or wood as other options. The proposed dormers are shown with a vertical board siding, which will match the vertical board siding on a rear or southern back box bay, which is in shadow in this rendering. The board siding, in our opinion, complements and contrasts with the brick and the fiber cement panel in order to provide some visual relief to the facades. Next slide. So this is the landscape and lighting plan. Basically, the site will be landscaped with all native plant materials. Exterior lighting will comply with the township requirements for safety levels. Next. The building will have a total of 4 dwelling units. There'll be 1 at the ground floor. Next slide. And then at the second floor, there'll be 2 side-by-side dwelling units. And then there'll be a top or 4th unit at that top floor, which is basically considered an attic unit because of the slope ceilings within that top floor. Next slide. This is the view of the building as seen from Woodland Avenue. So the windows within the brick portion of the building will primarily be one light double hungs consistent with the windows in the neighboring brick buildings. Next slide. And then this is the view again along Wheeler Street. The windows in the more contemporary rear portion and the top half sections will be one light, either casement or awning windows, plus some fixed windows, and more appropriate for a contemporary style of this rear portion of the building. And we successfully used this approach, I think 5 or 6 years ago, when we designed the building at 256 Park Street in Watchung Plaza. We did a very traditional masonry front, but then as it went around to the rear, it became more contemporary. We changed the windows within that contemporary portion as we're doing here. Next slide, please. This slide shows all 4 exterior elevations. Again, the top left is the view from Woodland, top right is the view from Wheeler. The bottom left is the view up against 5 Wheeler, the existing building at 5 Wheeler Street, and then the bottom right is the view looking to the east. Next slide, please. So we prepared a streetscape view to see how the building fits into context of the neighborhood. So there are 2 streetscape views. The top is the streetscape view along Woodland Avenue, and the bottom is the streetscape along Wheeler. So you can see how the proposed building is in the center of that top drawing. The building directly to the east on Woodland, the one that had the grocery store, that's slightly taller. And then the building at the corner of Wheeler and Woodland is just slightly shorter than our subject building. And then the bottom streetscape view is along Wheeler Street. The proposed building is the bottom left. The next building to the right is the existing 5 Wheeler, and then the next 2 buildings along Wheeler are shown to the right, just in outline form. Next slide, please. We didn't include all of the site details that are required for the zoning board, but we've been studying site details for the project. There'll be a 4.5-foot high wood fence to screen the entire west side of the parking area that's partially under the building, except for where the entrance drive is into the parking. And then we'll have a trash enclosure that will complement the wood fencing. It'll have the same wood fencing as the fence that screens the parking area. We're providing 2 electric vehicle chargers within the parking area. Next slide. These 2 pictures served as inspiration. The bottom left is we feel it's important to incorporate red brick with detailing to relate to the neighboring Woodland Avenue buildings. And then the bottom right is more of a contemporary image, but we found that it has this beige fine sand fiber cement that relates to the stucco on several of the buildings in the neighborhood. The problem that I find is that I don't think any of the stucco is original. I think the stucco on the neighboring buildings has covered another material originally. In particular, 5 Wheeler, we saw the photograph. It was originally brick, and now it's stucco. And then further down Wheeler to the south, there are 1 or 2 stucco buildings. I don't believe that they were originally stucco. The more I look at it, they were probably wood siding. So we've looked at this material, this fiber cement material. We're open to suggestions. We like the way it looks. We've investigated wood siding and also stucco. I prefer not to do the stucco. So the other thing with the fiber cement panels, the goal is to have minimal or almost invisible joints. It seems to be a good choice if we don't have the joints very visible on those panels. We're wary about introducing another facade material to this neighborhood. There's a lot going on in the neighborhood, and I'd hate to see something that looks out of place. So I think replacing an unattractive parking area with a new building makes sense, as long as the building makes sense both for the neighborhood and provides enjoyment for the people who live there and also enjoyment for the people passing by every day. There's been a gap in the streetscape as seen from 1934. There's been this parking area and the one-car garage. Seems odd that that's been like that for 90 years, but the proposal is to construct a building there that will fit into the streetscape and the neighborhood. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll start with questions. Mr. Sweeney, do you have a question?
Yes, I want to get clarification of the facade facing the Woodland Avenue and the Wheeler side. Is that brick or is that a brick composite, some material?
The two-story portion, as you can see on slide 13 in your package, that's brick.
That is brick?
That front two-story section is all brick. Brick with brick detailing.
Okay, because it looks substantially different from the brick in the on the other buildings on Wheeler and Woodland. So
Yeah, I think
it's not clear to me. So second, I would ask you whether you view that building and its design consistent with the historic character of the other buildings in the vicinity.
I do. I think we've made a strong effort to have that two-story brick portion relate to the buildings in the neighborhood. And then to the rear, we've stepped in that 1.5-story section, so it has the same setback as the buildings along Wheeler Street. However, it will have a gable roof or a triangular-shaped roof. Along Wheeler Street, as you probably have seen, there are many different roof shapes. 5-Wheeler, for example, just has a low-pitch roof starting at the Wheeler Street facade and pitching back. Many of the buildings on Wheeler Street have that same type of roof pitch, but there are quite a few with gable-shaped roofs on Wheeler Street. So we thought we'd incorporate the gable shape and also make it, in our case, make it more dramatic inside of that apartment, that top floor.
Okay, third, it just relates to the other historic buildings in there. Is the in your view, is the design of the building consistent with the historic character of the adjacent buildings?
I think it is, yes.
And why do you think it is? Because it looks to me like a much more modern type.
Well, yes, the rear part that stepped in is definitely more contemporary than the major portion that sits at the corner of Woodland and Wheeler. So that, I think, anchors the property, that two-story brick section. But definitely the part that, you're correct, the part that steps back is more contemporary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Who uses the garage currently? Is that for the 5-Wheeler residents?
I'd have to ask the applicant.
Okay. Just storage? And the parking lot where the building's being built, who uses that? Is that public or open to the public? No? Because there are cars on it in the picture, so I was just curious about its use.
Some of the residents
Are using it, okay. Yeah, I don't really have many questions. Thank you.
Nick?
Yeah. Was there any thought to just do the back kind of in the same brick vein as the front and the sort of two front sides, even if it does step back and maybe the geometry gets a little different with the gable roof, but just kind of continue the same material language.
We didn't think of continuing the same language as the front. We wanted to sort of acknowledge the remainder of Wheeler Street, and the trick was to make the transition from that brick to this more contemporary portion in the rear. So we probably were never going to do all brick, or at least all brick with a flat roof anyway.
Okay. That was my only question for right now. Thank you.
I had a question on, I think it's page, you have a diagram of the massing. Here, it's on 18, page 18. So you have a diagram of the massing of the house at 2729 Woodland, then the proposed, this new building, and then 1617 Woodland, which is existing. And there's voids, there's empty spaces between each one. The one to the right of the house is obviously the street.
Correct.
And then the one to the left,
That's parking for 2729 Woodland. So if you look at the photograph on slide 7. That one. So the building on the left is 2729, and that space to the right of, or to the west of 2729, that's used as parking for 2729.
oh, so that's not included in this, that's not part of this lot?
Right, that's part of 2729's property.
So my question is, are the widths between these buildings relatively the same? It looks like the one where the street is larger, wider, but not significantly wider. There's no,
Scale,
there's no numbers on it. There's no,
dimensions.
yeah, thank you.
Right. Right, no, that one.
Yes, that one.
Right, so on the top streetscape, that space is the parking area for the neighbor's property between those first two buildings. And then, as you stated, to the right of the proposed building is the street, that's Wheeler. And then,
But are those relatively, it looks here, the one to the right is not significantly larger, but just a little bit larger? Just wondering how those two voids relate to,
I'm sorry, which, not clear.
Question, like, was the diagram, was it drawn to
Scale,
scale of
yes.
the distance between the
Yes.
existing properties and the proposed?
Yes.
okay. And then my other question is, you just spoke about, you were speaking about page 22 with the, you do not want to use stucco, correct?
I think the preference was not to use stucco. I feel like it was introduced
as a,
almost incorrectly to cover up things, almost like aluminum siding was in this neighborhood.
okay.
If the commission preferred stucco over the fiber cement, we would consider that. But we wanted to have a very smooth finish on this contemporary part to contrast with the brick and to fit in with the contemporary feel.
Is the fiber cement surface treatment, is that smoother than I mean, you couldn't
Oh,
do-
yeah, it's very smooth.
Okay,
If you look, it's hard to see, but on that slide 22, which is probably the last slide, the right image is from a fiber cement company, where it's a very smooth board. And what we liked about this is you don't really see the joints between it.
and does it have a reflective quality?
No,
No,
it's
no
a matte finish. Matte.
Okay. Well, those were my two questions, thank you.
Thank you.
before we have our discussion, is there anyone from the public that would like to ask a question? No. Okay, so before we open up for our discussion, I just would like to read from our design guidelines that says the underlying concept in designing new buildings for historic districts is that the new building must be both compatible with the historic character of the district and be a product of its own time, or in other words, not replicate historic designs. It is a common misconception that newly constructed buildings should look old and should imitate historic structures. It is important to realize that while historic districts do convey a sense of time and place associated with their history, these areas are not frozen in time and continue to be dynamic, evolving communities. This evolution is apparent via building styles and methods of construction that reflect the apparent age of the buildings, and I think from what Mr. Sionis said also, the materials as well. I would add that. So having quoted that from our design guidelines, we'll open it up now for discussion amongst the commissioners. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you. Overall concept, I like filling in the empty space there, putting a productive building that's going to be consistent with the character. I'm glad you read that little excerpt there, because when I looked at the building, it seemed that all the buildings immediately adjacent to it on both Wheeler and Woodland were brick in character, and it just appears to be a different color of brick, but as you've indicated, they're both brick. So I generally like it. I don't feel as comfortable with the portion on the facade next to the five-wheeler. That's whatever that black material is. I'm not sure what that material is.
Fiber cement, we were just talking about
Yeah. I'm troubled by. I think if you're going to have it consistent with character, the facade should have more of a brick appearance. That's my comment. That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
But I generally like, as I say, filling in with buildings, and at first it was daunting to see all the variants needed in code waivers, but I think they're probably appropriate to accomplish this, which is to me, it looks like a major project, even if it's a minor subdivision. Thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I generally agree with Mr. Sweeney's comments. I like the overall design, in particular the parapets, the way the cutouts are designed. I think it does a nice job of blending in but being a little bit more modern. Far be it from me to give architectural advice, but I have Mr. Giuliano's voice in my head from the last meeting about adding muttons perhaps in some of the windows in the older section of the building, but I would leave that to more learned members of this commission. But overall, I am supportive of this project. And I like how it fills that gap, that void in that parking lot.
Nick, do you have any?
Yeah. Overall, very much in support of it. I think the proportions and the appearance of the brick along the street faces are very nice on it, especially when you see it on the streetscape diagram. It really picks up the scale and the character of the building across the street very well. I don't mind so much the more modern approach to the back. I do take a little bit of issue, particularly on page 13, the view of the fiber cement volume from that street, just because it's so open to the street on that side. I wonder if it might be a bit more sensitive of an approach to do that in brick as well, and even some of the buildings in the surrounding neighborhood have the brick gable end on them. So even if it were just perhaps for those two facades, the one directly facing Wheeler and then the gable end that you see so well from the street, those were rendered in brick, I think it might fit the streetscape a little bit better. And then coming around to the view that's on the screen there, I don't have any issue with the fiber cement on those sides. and, for the third floor / attic area. So that would be my recommendation.
Anything else? No?
That's all.
Well, my opinion, I generally am in support of the entire design. I particularly like the way that the terraces have been included in the interior parts of it, which on a corner really opens up the volume of it. It doesn't become so bulky, even though it is, a large building. I have the same feeling that the fiber cement, although I don't mind the material, the introduction of that material into the neighborhood, and I think, Paul, your point is good about the stucco. I think that when you look at it, especially on page 13, which I think everybody else has noted, it's just, it overwhelms it and it becomes more disjointed. And it's not to say that the design, it's definitely the more modern approach to the traditionally minded piece on the corner, but I think it just might be a bit overwhelming, especially because the buildings, the other buildings on the street, and I'm not quite sure, they're not as wide as it seems like a big block of dark color there. But I generally, overall, I'm really in supportive of it, and I think it would be a good addition to the streetscape and the neighborhood. And I think it fits in as if our interpretation of new construction in an historic district. Does anyone else have anything else to say?
No, it seemed unanimous.
Okay. Well, then thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's exciting.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Paul.
A1.
Thank you, Paul. Nice seeing you again.
Oh, yeah, A1.
All of the others.
Yeah.
So which we transformed that building. That was gray stucco all over the bottom. Took that all out, put brick in.
Our next order of business is a referral from the Planning Board, application 2875, 30 Wheeler Street. This is another major subdivision? I think this is a minor subdivision. Minor, okay. Minor subdivision to subdivide the property. Subject property into 2 lots. This property is also within the proposed historic district known as Wheeler Street. Wheeler Street Historic District, which we just discussed. The subject property is located on the west side. It contains a pre-existing 3-family building, was subject to a gut renovation in 2018. Building is in the northeast corner of the property with a driveway located south of the building, provides access to an unstriped parking area. The entire property is paved and surrounded by combined retaining wall and fence. And I just want to note that the existing house or building that's on the property to the north is considered an intrusion into the historic district. So the Okay, so it's an intrusion. Now, we do not have anyone here to speak to the application, but we can still make a recommendation to is it the planning board? As to whether or not the idea of the subdivision for this property would be in accordance or how it relates to the Wheeler Street Historic District.
And do we factor in the intrusion, the intrusive property?
Let's ask Ms. Bauer.
I know we can probably consider anything we like, but,
I would
Is that-
definitely,
yeah,
I would definitely include that.
yeah. We include that in our referral or recommendation back to the
Well,
board?
no, I didn't mean that. I meant include everything about it
Yeah.
from its design and massing and, placement and so on and so forth with respect to your historic preservation consideration of the application before you, or referred to you.
Okay.
Could you explain the intrusion portion?
It's the style of the building that was built.
Okay, the
See,
style, yeah.
Yeah, so it's key, contributing, and intrusion are the three classifications on a building
Yeah.
within a historic district.
Yeah, intrusion means it's out of character.
Right, which means it's out of character. But if you look at the page 3, which is on the planning report, you could see that the massing of the building and the building to the right, they sit right on the driveway. There's no, not driveway, the sidewalk. There's no front yard, no setback. The height of this building appears to be higher than the building to the south. To the north, not to the north, to the south, there is another building that's 2.5 stories high, which also, I didn't look at this one up, but it also looks to be a little bit not original to the district. So I think what we have, if you look at page 7, you've got a good view of the streetscape, which is across Wheeler Street from the subject property, looking east, which are 2.5-story houses. So I guess we can speak about the placement and the massing, and we have no proposed building, actually. It's really just for the subdivision.
Would we have an opportunity to review any building that was proposed for the subdivision?
Well, I don't know. Do we have that in?
So was this bifurcated? They're just asking for a subdivision now?
Yeah.
You can ask them to come back.
Right,
if
we
you
can-
want.
Okay, and
Yeah.
I think that we would
I
have
think-
to,
Right.
recommend, I guess if we can require it, I would require it. It looks like all of the houses are, even the ones who are contributing, are fairly close together. I wouldn't see the subdivision itself being a
Deterrent?
deterrent.
That's the problem, yeah, because it's,
I would think the design of the
Right.
building is really the primary concern, making sure it's not right up against the sidewalk, making sure that the design fits with the character of the neighborhood. But from purely subdividing, I do not believe is a detriment to the neighborhood.
Detriment, not
Yeah.
deterrent, detriment. Nick?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just looking at the overhead map and the site plan, I mean, the subdivision, I don't think is making a lot that's any smaller than what's characteristic of the neighborhood. I think this lot is uncharacteristically big compared to the rest of the neighborhood. And if we have the opportunity to review the house that's going on the subdivided lot, the hope is it is consistent with the neighborhood and maybe blocks some of the view of this big one that's not consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. So maybe the subdivision helps to actually uphold the fabric of the neighborhood a little bit better if it's a sensitive design for the new building. So I'm in favor of the subdivision.
So can we make it a requirement to come back with the design? Or we can't, because this is just
It's a referral.
it's a referral?
So we can recommend.
It's referral and it's an advisory report, just requested.
Okay, we'll request it.
I think
Jerry?
We also need to have accurate data. Is this two-family or three-family? The house in the area appears to be two-family. This this building does appear out of
This one,
character,
this
out of
one.
size.
This one?
Yeah,
Oh.
the existing one. Out of character, out of size, but as Mike said, I don't have any problem with the subdivision of the property into two lots, because I think the lot is double size compared to all the other sides. So that aspect of it doesn't trouble me. What goes in there troubles me, given that what's already in there is excess of mass, excess of size, out of character, and otherwise troubling to design it. It's very strange to me.
I would include those comments in your comments going back to the planning board, because that's what you really want to. You want to not further detract from the situation, and then request to see the design.
Absolutely.
Well, that will have to be in the referral. So you'll write that and then let me know. When does this go to the zoning board? Do you know?
Not in March.
Pardon me?
Probably April.
April?
April? Oh, okay. I'm just wondering in terms of timing, if you're going to be able to do this by tomorrow. Because you're leaving, that's why.
I will update you.
Okay. I just don't want to miss, if you're not going to be able to do it, we need, that's why I asked when you knew it was going to be presented.
It won't be presented in March.
Well, so we have time.
Okay, as long as we have time, because I think this is important that we get it right to send to the zoning board or planning board. Okay, so we're in agreement that the subdivision, but it's the, we,
In fact, no.
The design
What?
of the new
I would
building
need to
and the design of
confirm,
the
because
existing.
I'm not aware of the schedule of the planning board.
Okay.
In my head, it was zoning board. So I will confirm tomorrow, but I think I can do the referral by tomorrow.
okay.
Okay.
So we are in agreement that the subdivision is okay, considering the character of the neighborhood, but that the building that will be proposed, we request that it come back to us so we can look at it in terms of the massing, the size, and the placement. Okay? All right, so you'll inform Mr. Tremulak? Thank you. Now, with that, we have a discussion, open discussion. Is there any, I don't think there's nothing that we were going to discuss.
I think-
The main discussion, I would say, is happy to be able to finish this early in the evening, so that we don't have an objective of going 3 to 4 hours every night. So,
All right, so it is now 8:47. Would someone like to make a motion to
I'll
adjourn?
move to.
Sounds like Jerry wants to.
I'll second Jerry's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so
Thank you.
we'll
Right.
see you next meeting, which is March 21st.
What time is it? 8:48?
He's doing School of Rock, and
Oh,
these
really?
musicians do these